Hey, what is up guys? So we're going to be continuing our series of why these cards are banned, and we're going to be talking about the spell cards today, or if you were fortunate enough to have some of these older cards, they were actually called magic cards and weren't actually called spell, but there was a dispute between Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic the Gathering. But that said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the first three cards are actually very similar. Brain Control, Change of Heart, Snatch Steal. Basically, they all have the ability to just take your opponent's monster, and they usually, just lasted until the end phase or something like that. They all had some type of cost. Now, there's still a card called Number 11 Big Eye, which, he still has his quote-unquote downside, which he can't attack. But, that card steals it forever. All these cards are just basically until the end phase. Although this one is, they gain 1,000 life points. But first off, Brain Control. Now, out of all these three, Brain Control actually stayed in the game the longest. Brain Control, did have that 800 life point cost, so sometimes that would actually hurt. There were times where you couldn't actually use Brain Control simply because of the life point cost. Whereas with Change of Heart, you can activate it pretty much whenever. And Change of Heart also could take face down monsters. That was also downside to, Brain Control. You can't take face down monsters. But generally, when you took their monster, you were going to synchro up with it. And if it was legal now, you would XYZ and all that other good stuff. And also with Snatch Steal, you also have to take a face-up monster as well, because, you can't equip a card to a face-down monster. It just doesn't work. Although there might be something in the future that allows you to do that, but Change of Heart was probably one of the best out of all these three. Although Snatch Steal was pretty nasty too, because you didn't really have to give it back. It's just they gained 1,000 life points, but that was very mediocre. Because majority of the time, you usually were going to take a monster that had over 1,000 attack anyways. Next card, Premature Burial. Now, it's kind of similar to a Reborn, or it's actually more similar to Call of the Haunted. But anyways, you pay 800 life points, you target one monster in your graveyard, you special summon that, and face up attack position, and then you equip it. When this card is destroyed, you destroy the equipped monster. Now, notice it says, when this card is destroyed, you destroy the equipped monster. So that's just something that, you can play around with, because some cards, they just say send it or something like that. But anyways, Premature Burial, I was thinking, what? Call of the Haunted's already at 3, and we already have Reborn legal. I find Reborn to be a much better card all around. Brinac is already banned. Brinac had some shenanigans with this card. You can keep on bouncing it back, and if you had, Librarian, or you had some combo to, just keep on drawing cards, maybe you could technically do it, but Librarian's already at 1. But, this card definitely opens up, doors to combos, especially when we still have DeLorean legal, but DeLorean's a lot harder to make than, say, something like Brinac. But basically, it stops your opponent from just pushing really easy. This card is just here to remind me that I have to go down here and select the Ice Barrier. This card is not bad at all. Next up, Cold Wave and Giant Tornado. These are just, oh, actually, Harpy Feather Dust. So these are all kind of like the same card anyways. You'll notice some of these banned cards are very similar. But Cold Wave was actually at 3 for the longest time. And a lot of players just played 1. If you guys didn't know, back in the day, it was just like, yeah, just take a Cold Wave. It's a pretty good card. But eventually players started catching on, then Cold Wave went down to 1, then now it's been, oh my gosh. If people would have, known about Cold Wave even, further back, I think this card's amazing. And it's an insane effect. So you can only activate this at the start of your main phase 1 until your next turn. You and your opponent cannot play or set any spell or trap cards. That's so dirty. So basically, if you're playing something that involves lots of monsters, or your opponent is playing Infernities where they can't set anything, that absolutely destroys Infernities. Like Cold Wave absolutely dominates Infernities to the point where it's just like game over really fast. But Cold Wave, it allows you to basically push really well. You activate it first, then you push really hard, and then your opponent can't respond to anything, and all your monsters are good because you don't have to worry about traps next turn. And then as soon as your turn starts next turn, you can start setting everything. So it's like going first twice in a game. It's so insanely good. Although I will have to argue, when you have Cold Wave, it was really good going second, because your opponent would set everything and you'd be like, okay, Cold Wave, and then you could just, you don't have to worry about anything. It was kind of one of those cards where you just Cold Wave and then you'd push for game. That's generally what happened in the game. Also, Giant Tornado was one of those cards where you just Giant Tornado and you establish field and you kind of go for game. Now, since Call of the Haunted is 3, that perhaps might be a reason why they're like, let's just keep Tornado on the ban list. But yeah, Tornado was legal at one point, and Heavy was actually banned at one point. They actually flip-flopped, but now we have Giant Tornado banned at the moment. We still have cards like Malevolent Catastrophe to really wreck the back row. MST's at 3. I'm not sure how relevant Tornado would come, or if it would be that relevant, if it would come back into the game. I know some decks definitely would play it. I'm sure E-Dragons would play it, because, you need to get rid of that Imperial Iron Wall sometimes. But, it is just a really good card, and it's kind of one of those cards where you just pushed for game. I feel like Heavy early on, if you Heavy for 2 early on, it's still good by all means, but there are times where your opponent will then just start setting like crazy and you just don't have those answers. And then Tornado was one of those cards where it answered a lot of other stuff. Plus, you know, when you activate Tornado, they can't Starlight Road it, so there's another side where Tornado can be like, you know, better than Heavy Storm in one aspect. But I always felt like early on in the game, if, you know, you set a bunch of cards and they would Tornado you, you're like, that's fine, I'll just reset everything. So I felt like Tornado was a better card for, you know, players that were, you know, a higher caliber of skill, more of a player that really understood the game, because when they went for Tornado, they were going to go for game. They're not going to Tornado you into maybe establishing a field unless like their hand is bad or they must get out some type of play. They must get out, you know, a Thunder King against your spellbooks. You know, it's just one of those cards where like unless, you know, you're in a bad position, you probably don't want to activate too early, unless you're playing some deck, like I said, where you can establish some type of stun or control. And Harvey's Feather Duster, this card's, it reminds me of like Regeki. It's just, you know, let me destroy all of your spell and trap cards. One thing I wanted to mention real quick, there's this card called, probably Wing wasn't typing, oh, I didn't spell Griffin right. Is it G or Y? Oh, here it is. Griffin Wing. There's actually a card that specifically counters this card, which is hilarious. Now, this card is not banned, but I don't know why you'd play this card considering this card is already banned. But, yeah, Griffin Wing, very, very dirty card when you got to successfully activate it. I know in some of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Games I used to run Griffin Wing just because Harvey's Feather Duster, it was like, you activate it and you just, like, lose because, like, it's just destroy all of your opponent's back row. It's just, there's no downside to it, and there's no cost or anything like that. Very dirty card. Next up, Confiscation and Delinquent Duo. Although Confiscation is probably not as good as Delinquent Duo. Sure, Delinquent Duo, I mean, they both have to, you have to pay 1,000 life points, but Confiscation, basically, you know, it's kind of like Trap Dushu. Trap Dushu is also banned, and actually, these three cards are basically the same, but these first two you have to pay 1,000 life points. But Confiscation, you pay 1,000 life points and look at your opponent's hand, you select one card, and you discard that card. Now, you know, since it is discarding, if you select a Dark World, sure, the Dark World will get their effects, but Dark Worlds are not really like the highest tier right now, so Confiscation still would be an insanely good card in this game to this day. Same thing with Delinquent Duo. You just get to pay 1,000 life points. Your opponent randomly selects and discards one card from his or her hand, and then selects and discards another card. So basically, it just discard 2 random cards is what it comes down to. That really does hurt, though. That's 1/3 of the hand. You know, if you know they're going first, or actually, well, if they're going second, then yeah, you're basically getting rid of 1/3 of their hand before they even really start. So let's start out with basically 4 cards if you get to go first. This card's just really, really insanely good. But like I said, if they're playing Dark Worlds, then you might have a problem. Also, the Forceful Sentry, actually, I think this one's the best, kind of in a sense, because it doesn't send to the graveyard. You know, right now in Yu-Gi-Oh, a lot of cards, they just, you know, they have effects in graveyard, or they want to have cards in graveyard. Where Forceful Sentry, you just return it to their deck, and you get to select which card you want. Well, Confiscation you do get to select, but Delinquent Duo you don't get to select. Plus, with both of these, you have to pay 1,000. 1,000 is very small, but you know it can make you know the game difference in the long terms of a game. Next up, Card of Safe Return. Oh my gosh, if this card was legal now, oh my gosh, Unarmed Dragons would be even better than they already are. So it says, it's a continuous, by the way. When a monster is special summoned from the field to you, oh, I'm sorry. When a monster is special summoned to the field from your graveyard, you can draw 1 card. That is an insane effect. If you guys are wondering why I keep on saving, it's so I don't like timeout on Dueling Network. But anyways, you know, you just banish special summon from the graveyard, banish special summon from the graveyard, draw. It's just like, it makes E-Dragons even more insane, and plus, it's pretty good in zombies. You can utilize it in Lightsworn. It's just, overall, just a really unfair card, because if you have it early on, you get to just net so much advantage in the game. Next up, this is kind of like an OTK kind of card, Dimension Fusion. So you pay 2,000 life points, and both players special summon as many of their removed from play monsters as possible. And it's just really dirty, because usually when you're activating, you're just going for game. That's just really what it comes down to. I would argue that, you know, Dimension Fusion can technically be dead, but, you know, you only have to pay 2,000, whereas this card, which is legal right now, it's a little bit slower, but you have to play half your life points, so technically, Return from the Different Dimension can never really be a dead card, unless you simply just don't have cards banished. Then that argument of both of these cards is kind of unvalid. I mean, if you have no monsters banished, then, yeah, of course they're going to both be dead, but this card is probably more active, just because it allows you the ability always to activate it, whereas this card, if you don't have the life points, you can't use it. But Dimension Fusion, much faster, and you're going to go for game, pretty much when it goes off. Next up, Graceful Charity. Oh man, this card should be pretty self-explanatory. It works with Dark Worlds too, so I don't think it'll ever see, play anymore. Very, very dirty card. Lets you cycle out too many cards, and plus, like I mentioned before, cards in graveyard is not really like a bad thing now, because it's like, you put the E-Dragons in the graveyard, put the Dark Worlds in the graveyard, just put any of this, even the spellbook spell cards. You just start dumping stuff in the graveyard. It just helps. Makes the game so much faster, and like I said, the Dark Worlds get their effects. Next up, Pot of Greed. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's just free extra cards, what it comes down to. Next up, Raigeki. Self-explanatory. Basically, a Dark Hole bundle that hits your opponent's field. Next up, another card that's very similar to Raigeki. It kind of has, it's got like a lightning in it too. It's called Lightning Vortex, and it destroys all face up. Let me show you guys that card real quick. Actually, was seeing some play in Mermails, if you guys didn't know. Gun gets her effect when it goes off, because Gun doesn't miss timing. Here's Lightning Vortex. I'm going to show you guys this. So you discard one card, and you destroy all face up monsters your opponent controls. So that's just a very similar effect, but not as good, obviously, plus you have to discard. But if you're playing Dark Worlds, you will not get the effect, because the Dark World, the discard has to be the last thing that happens. And so if you're playing Dark Worlds, do not try to run Lightning Vortex. Well, you can, but it won't work out like the Dark World won't get its effect. Next up, Last Will. Sangan's already banned, but this card is insane, especially since, the introduction of Synchros. So if a monster on your side of the field was sent to your graveyard this turn, you can special summon one monster with attack of 1,500 life, or 1,500 points or less from your deck once during this turn, then shuffle your deck. So that just means, I Synchro, okay, let me just get out another free monster. That's pretty good. It doesn't matter if it was destroyed by battle or Synchroed. What it comes down to is pretty much if you Synchro, you just get an extra free card. Any 1,500 attack points or less. That's pretty dirty. But next up, we have Metamorphosis. So you tribute one monster. You special summon one fusion monster from your fusion deck with the same level as a tributed monster. I was like, why is this card banned? What is it? Thousand Eyes Restrict is already banned. I was like, what other good cards can actually, be relevant into the metagame today? And I still think that Thousand Eyes Restrict isn't even that, unfair compared to some of the cards we have already. But I was like, what can actually make this, OP? So we actually have the Last Warrior from Another Planet. This card is actually pretty good, if you can get it out. So when this card is special summoned, you destroy all monsters on your side of the field except this card. As long as this card remains face up on the field, neither player can normal summon, flip summon, or special summon any monsters. Now, obviously it's level 7, so that means unlock dragons, summon any E-Dragon. Perhaps you make a Draco stack first, get those 2 tokens out, then summon another E-Dragon, and then go ahead and summon the Last Warrior from Another Planet. It activates its effect and blows up everything, although your Draco sack won't be destroyed because you still have those tokens. Therefore, you now have a 2350 monster and a 2600 monster, and your opponent can't summon, period. They can only set cards, but what are E-Dragons going to set? Maxi, Valor, maybe a baby E-Dragon, but yeah, it just becomes a losing game simply from them. So I don't think Metamorphosis will probably come back anytime soon, because at first I was like, this card might have some potential. Next card up, Mirage of Nightmare. So it's once per turn during your opponent's standby phase, draw cards until you have 4 cards in your hand. If you do, during your next standby phase after that, randomly discard the same number of cards you drew, or your entire hand if you don't have enough cards. So basically, obviously, pretty good with Dark Worlds, because the last thing that happens, again, is the discard. Plus, if you're playing E-Dragons, discarding doesn't really matter. You get free searches and all that other good stuff. So, should be self-explanatory. Plus, it's continuous, so you get to activate over and over. Next up, Painful Choice. So, this card is actually so insanely good in Lightsworn. So, you select 5 cards from your deck, and you show them to your opponent. Your opponent selects one among them, add that card to your hand, and discard the remaining cards to the graveyard. That is so good in Lightsworn, because you literally can just pick all the different Lightsworns, and then just be like, okay, I add one to my hand, and then I send 4 Lightsworn to the grave. You literally pick 5 different Lightsworn right there, and bam, you have access to Judgment Dragon immediately. Which is so unfair. And I believe Wolf gets its effect. Technically, you can select, triple Wolf, and then, whatever, and then you get 3 free Wolves. That's pretty dirty as well. So, that's why that card is banned. Next up, Mass Driver. Now this card, oh my gosh, this card was so annoying. There's actually multiple FTKs and OTKs with the deck. I actually played a deck called Black Terra OTK. Let me show you this card real quick. But this card didn't cause the card to get banned. What caused it to get banned was actually substituted in Frog FTK. But there's actually another combo with Mass Driver that accessed another OTK, which is the Black Terra OTK. I forgot, it's Spring of there's another OTK with this card too. But anyways, Mass Driver with Substitute really allowed you to it was an FTK, and it was so annoying. I believe the deck won Worlds, and it won so many times. So this deck FTK'd so easily. And I don't think Valor or Maxi was available at this time. But anyways, substitute its effect is, this card's also banned, but you contribute 1 monster to special summon 1 frog monster from your deck, except for Frog the Jam. And then frog monsters, except Frog the Jam, cannot be destroyed by battle. All the hate for Frog the Jam, because he's apparently too good. So you can use Soul Exchange, and you contribute 1 monster in your opponent's field, and then just keep one specialing. So what you would do is, you would activate Max Driver, then you would summon, let's just go to some of the frogs. For example, I think I don't know if someone played Dude Frog. You could probably play it, but it was pretty much Dupe Frog and like Treeborn Frog and was it Flip? I mean, you could just, it doesn't really matter what you played. You just deck thin like crazy. So you just tribute 1 frog, and then you special summon another frog, and then you would run. I'm pretty sure they played like a bunch of frogs. I don't remember the exact ones they played, but you would just tribute all the frogs. I know that they played Swap, and I know they played Dupe. So you just go through all your frogs, and you would throw them all in the graveyard. And then you would also have Rodin Totem in the graveyard, and then you would just activate Rodin Totem's effect. You would banish 1 frog, and then you special summon the Rodin Totem, and then you activate Mass Driver's effect to tribute Rodin Totem, and you inflict 400 points of damage, and then you would just do it again. You would activate Rodin Totem's effect, banish a different frog, special summon Rodin Totem, and so basically all you do is you would summon Rodin Totem over and over and over by banishing a frog each time, and each time you did it, you would inflict 400 points of damage, and you would make it game. It was very annoying, and it was very, very, very consistent to the point where it FTK'd nearly, I would say at least like 80% of the time. Like it was really consistent because obviously you have lots of ways to search for the whatever frog you really needed. What is it? Dupe Frog's the one that adds the frog, right? There you go. He is not actually a frog, he's actually a toad, so keep that in mind as well. But yeah, it's not legal anyway, so don't worry about it. I guess unless you're playing on unlimited or traditional. Next card up, Butterfly Dagger Elma. Now, this has the effect of the equipped monster gains 300 attack when this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard. While equipped, you can return this card to your hand. How it was used in Exodia decks. It was used with Gearfried the Iron Knight and Royal Magical Library. So you would summon Gearfried the Iron Knight, you'd hope he survived, or you could set, more realistically, you would set more Royal Magical Library. It has 2,000 defense, so it wouldn't die. Their opponent would attack into it, probably wouldn't die. It flips up. Then next turn, you would normal summon Gearfried the Iron Knight. You would then equip Butterfly Dagger Elma to Gearfried the Iron Knight, and Gearfried the Iron Knight has the effect of when the equipped card is equipped to this card, destroy the equipped card. So basically, you would keep on equipping it over and over. If you guys don't know Royal Magical Library's effect, each time a spell card is activated, you place 1 counter on it, and you can remove 3 to draw 1 card. I don't even think it's that relevant, to be honest, in like the metagame today. Like, how often is it, you know, that you can normal summon Royal Magical Library, then normal summon Gearfried the Iron Knight, then plus have this, and if this card came back, it would come back at 1 anyways. So I think that it's not very viable to actually pull it off anyways. I mean, there's a lot more better builds of Exodia that have, you know, 1-day pieces actually at 1, but there was the build with Hope for Escape, there's the Blue Eyes Exodia, and I think that those are just much faster. Trying to get out, you know, these 2 cards, I mean, I guess if you want to use double summon, you could try it, but realistically, it's not too, you know, often that you'll be able to pull it off. But I was thinking, you know what, other deck can really utilize this. Inzectors can technically utilize this a little bit, but Inzector is not like the highest tier of deck at the moment. Next up, Temple of the Kings. This card actually got banned before it actually even came out in physical form. So this one is also used basically for Exodia decks, but there's also Makir the Destructor that has a similar effect of it. But anyways, the control of this card can activate trap cards the same turn they are set. You control Mystical Beast of Circuit, and this card, you can send both to the graveyard to special summon 1 monster from your hand, deck, or extra deck. That's an insane effect, but I think this card was made probably off of like a TV show card. But a very insanely good card, because all you would do is you can activate all the Reckless Greeds from your hand, Jar Greed, Legacy, Agaretsu, and you can just Exodia really easy. And for the last card, we have Future Fusion. Now this card, I mean, it was seeing some play in Heroes, it was seeing some play in Worms. I've seen Gladiator Beasts play it with like they would just send Prisma, and I mean, you could even send like something else that you want, whatever you wanted to send, just so you could make, or just throw a Bestiary in the graveyard, because you can make, what is that card? The Great Tornado, that was the card. Just throw a Bestiary in the graveyard, it was kind of nice sometimes. But basically, it was used, well, it basically got banned because of Chaos Dragons, which actually got, you know, they lost to Red Darkness Metal Dragon. Generally, they only played 2. Red is now at 1, but, You can blame Chaos Dragons for getting Future Fusion banned. Plus, there was multiple ways to abuse Future Fusion with Bryanak, but Bryanak's already banned now, so we don't really have to worry about that. But Future Fusion was very, very dirty in Chaos Dragons, and I would say Chaos Dragons is really the deck that got it banned. It was kind of their fault. This card just set them up for multiple pluses, and it set their graveyard up. It set them up for, extra advantage in the game. It was just so dirty. And then on top of, everything, you would get a free fusion monster. So not only was it good just to make your deck faster, but it also had some potential to get you a huge monster basically for free. The only thing that was cool with this is, MST stops it. I forgot if this card has a cost or not, but it's not legal anyways. You guys don't have to worry about that unless you're playing traditional, and in that case, yeah. But yeah, this is the episode of the reasons why these cards are banned. If you guys want to check out episodes 1 and 2, they're already up. Next up, we will be covering the traps, but if you guys want to check out episodes 1 and 2, which cover the monsters, episode 1 covers the monsters, episode 2 covers the Synchro section of the monsters, because there's so much stuff to talk about in both of those. But if you guys want to check those out, I'll put a link in the description box as well as an annotation up. But I hope this helps you guys answer some of your questions about why these certain cards are banned. I think if any one card off of this could potentially come back into the game, let me just think, because I always like to talk about what one card could potentially come back into the game. I think if anything, this card probably wouldn't hurt, but if you guys know any combos with this, let me know. I feel like this card could maybe come back into the game. This card is really only viable in E-Dragon, and it's simply just because of this card. And this card's actually really good, but that was another card I thought I might be able to come back. But Maestro Ever could be potential, but there, like I said, there is still some FTKs with the deck, and I don't like cards that are with this card. I don't like getting FTK'd. I'm sure a lot of you guys would agree. Getting FTK is not very fun. It's just very disappointing. I didn't get to play, but that's how you go is. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day. Asian Eyes signing out.